ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमो ओं विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्यति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त श्रीराधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. On behalf of ISKCON Chennai, I have great pleasure to welcome all of you for today's session on Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 12, entitled Devotional Service or Bhakti Yoga. You would all have observed so far, we have come up to 12th chapter now. Throughout Gita, Lord Shri Krishna is emphasizing Bhakti as the best process of attaining the highest knowledge of the absolute truth. And Krishna has also been presenting himself as that absolute truth. There is nothing higher than me, Arjun, Krishna says. Matta parataram na anyat. Other than me, there is nothing higher. No one is equal or higher than me. So I am the highest goal. I am the supreme truth. What the scientists are looking for, what the philosophers are looking for, what all the greatest thinkers of all times are looking for, and all the spiritual people or religious people are looking for. I am that highest truth. So Krishna has presented that. And also he said, Bhakti is the best and easiest and the most sublime way of attaining him. This also Krishna has made it very clear. At the end of the 6th chapter itself, before we entered the most important, the middle chapters, he said, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena andaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. Among all yogis, I think Bhakti Yogis as the best. This is Krishna says. In my opinion, Bhakti Yogi is the best. So, Bhakti is the best process. Bhakti Yogi is the best yogi, and Lord Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. These facts we have already seen in all these chapters we have come across, but this is a chapter completely dedicated to describe the glories of Bhakti and the glories of Bhaktas. So Krishna takes great pleasure in describing about his Bhaktas. After all, the qualities that the Bhaktas demonstrate are the same as that of Lord Krishna. Because the Bhakta becomes a transparent via medium, Krishna is able to show himself through his devotees. And so Krishna wants to attract the whole world back to himself through his pure devotees. Because the pure devotee has no ego at all, Lord Krishna actually shines through him and attracting everybody like a magnet, using the Bhakta as a medium. So Lord Krishna he always says, Bhaktas are very dear to me. Bhaktas are in my heart. I am always in their heart. Like that he goes on glorifying. So in this chapter, we will see some more glorification. But very interestingly, it's a very short chapter. Only 20 shlokas long. Why? So that I recollect one very interesting quote by Pascal. You might all have heard. He's a scientist, philosopher, mathematician from France belonging to the 18th century. Once he wrote a 4-sheet long letter to someone and wrote at the bottom postscript, I am sorry, please excuse me. I could have made it shorter, but I did not have time. If you think about it, you will agree. In the first phase of it, we will think, how is it possible? He had enough time to write a long letter, but not enough time for a short letter. But then to convey everything that you want to convey in short is very difficult for us. So we end up writing long essays. Actually, if I have to condense everything into one paragraph, I'll find it very difficult. But Lord Krishna, being what he is, the most important chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he gives it in just 20 beautiful shlokas. So let us enter into the beauty of these shlokas now. And before we enter, I want to give you a small introduction to something which is very, very important. Here you see in the picture the sun rays all around, and if you go towards the source of the sun rays, you find a sun globe, a burning globe called sun. But if you enter into the sun and you go deeper, there you find sun god, who is the lord of the sun planet, whose effulgence he is spreading everywhere in the form of sun's rays. So these are the 3 aspects of God. I will explain using this example. Actually, this example was used by Srila Prabhupada very many times to effectively put across to people what is spirituality and why there are so many different understandings of God by different people. So once you see this example, it will all become very clear to you. So basically, there are 3 types of people. There are jnanis who are trying to merge themselves into the original source of everything. And according to them, the original source of everything is nirguna, nirakara. Nirguna means no qualities, nirakar, no form. So they feel everything came from something which has no form and no qualities. So it is like nothing. You stay nirvan. So they all want to merge. They also feel in the center of me also there is nothing. Everything external has come because of desire. Like Buddha said, no, desire is the cause of misery and existence. You dissolve all desires like that. So some people choose this process. They are called jnanis. Among jnanis, there are so many branches, but ultimately all jnanis believe that everything finally is nirvana, and they want to merge there. So that is like the sun rays. They want to become part of the sun's rays and lose their existence. The next higher level is the yogi. The yogi understands a conscious Purusha behind this effulgence. He understands that within me there is a Paramatma. I am a soul, Atma, and there is a Paramatma which is guiding not only within me, but within everyone there is this Paramatma. And that Paramatma is one, even though there are so many Jivatmas. So let me concentrate through my dhyana, through my meditation, through my Ashtanga Yoga, and I will finally attain to that Paramatma. And through him, I will get his powers. He has got siddhis. Paramatma is able to be present in so many bodies at the same time. I can also get all those powers, and I can transfer myself from here to any planet that I want. So they want various powers. So they worship Paramatma. They are like those who worship the sun globe. They worship the sun globe. They are better than jnanis. Jnanis are only looking at the light. They don't even know there is a globe from which this light is spreading everywhere. They stop with the rays because they feel God is impersonal. Yogis go towards personality, but not sufficiently enough to see the form of the Lord. But the bhaktas, they don't stop with the globe. They enter into the globe and they directly contact that person who is flooding the light into the globe as well as beyond, who is Bhagavan. Now the Bhagavan is so beautiful, So beautiful, beyond description. We all know how beautiful Krishna is, of course, by hearing. We have not yet seen. Just by hearing the descriptions of Krishna and his wonderful pastimes, we feel so well attracted to him. So the bhaktas have the good fortune of entering into the highest understanding of God. So these are the three broad ways in which transcendentalists can be grouped. But all these three people, Jnani, Yogi, Bhakta, all of them are going beyond material creation. Within material creation, it is only Dukkhalayam. But all these three people are able to go beyond. But Bhakta is able to go the farthest by establishing a direct relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. So, Jnani definitely gets higher happiness than somebody in this material world, a karmi, is getting. Like somebody wants a car, bangla, money, and name and fame, they are getting very inferior pleasure. Jnani definitely gets higher than that. Yogi gets even higher than that. But Bhakta gets the ultimate, because Bhakta's happiness constantly grows. These things we will come to know as we proceed. So basically we are saying Sat feature of God is achieved by Jnani. Chit feature of God is achieved by Yogi. That means both Sat and Chit are achieved by Yogi. Once you go higher, you automatically get the lower also. And Bhakta gets the Sat Chit Ananda feature of the Bhagavan. I hope I have made things a little clear to you. Each of these subjects can be elaborated over several hours, but I think the basic understanding you have got by now. So Arjuna starts this chapter by asking a question to Krishna. This chapter is so beautiful. See the kind of question that Arjuna is asking. Arjuna says, who is better, a devotee or worshipper of impersonal Brahman effulgence? This is the question Arjuna. Because Arjuna is a bhakta, he wants this point to be clarified. Who is better? The impersonal worshipper says, I am better because I am doing the tough process and I will get a higher realization. Krishna replies, those who are fully absorbed in worshipping my personal form as Krishna, the threefold bending form of Krishna, holding a flute in his hand, having such a beautiful moon-like face, that Krishna, that form, those who are absorbed in that, Krishna says they are the best. In other words, he's saying, those who love me are the best. It's not surprising that Krishna says, those who love me are the best. So, but those who worship the unmanifest, impersonal effulgence, unmanifest means Nirakar, Nirgun, impersonal effulgence. Where is that effulgence coming from? Krishna. But they ignore Krishna. They want the effulgence. Beyond sense perception, that means it's beyond material creation. They make that as their goal. What happens to them? A long, arduous, dry process of sense control and self-denial. Going through this long process, they want to achieve the effulgence. Whereas Bhakta achieves directly Bhagavan, a much higher, without this kind of dry process. He is enjoying from the beginning, worshipping the Lord with happiness in his heart. So the Jnanis and Yogis, they will have to pass many intermediate stages and obstacles to progress. It's not easy to advance for them. And if they are completely successful, they will attain Krishna, because nothing beyond him is there to be attained. So if these people become successful, you know what they become? At some point, they become a devotee. You will remember, we have read that shloka, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit bhavati siddhaye yattanam avisiddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Krishna said, out of thousands of people, only one rarely is interested in spiritual advancement. But out of such people who are looking for spiritual advancement, rarely one knows me. Who is that one? Bhakta. So, all these people, if they say they have achieved the highest, that means they became bhaktas. At some point of time, in the jnana and yoga, they became bhaktas. So, all other yogas are merely paths leading to Bhakti Yoga. This we should clearly understand. So Bhakti Yoga is the highest, and all other yogas can be thought of as a ladder leading to Bhakti. So here the shlokas we will take. What we have already conveyed, this is in shloka. First and second shloka we will read. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yukta ye bhaktas tvam paryupasate ye chapi aksharam abhyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Arjuna's question again. Evam satata yukta ye bhaktas tvam paryupasate ye chapi aksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Translation. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? So we have already discussed this. Whether the Jnani, those who worship impersonal Brahman, they are called Jnani. Is the Jnani better or a devotee better? This is Arjuna's question. Let us see how Krishna responds. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Mayyaveshya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tama Mataha. Again. Mayyaveshya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamo Mataha. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix minds on my personal form and always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. So is it not very clear? Is there anything confusing in Krishna's statements? But why do people misinterpret Bhagavad Gita? They misinterpret because they are envious of Krishna. Everybody wants to pose himself as the greatest. If not today, tomorrow I will become the greatest. One day I will become God. Or everything is ultimately nothing. I will achieve that nothingness. So like that, everybody is thinking. So they are unable to acknowledge a person is on top of everything. And I cannot take that position. Krishna's position cannot be taken by anyone. So that envy people have. So even the greatest philosophers and so-called pandits and so-called devotees, they all have asuya, inside them. They have envy in them, jealousy towards the Supreme Lord in them. So they misinterpret Gita. That is why if you are a transcendentalist, if you are really eager to know the absolute truth, you should not go to such people, even though they may pose themselves as very intelligent. You should go to someone who is very simple and very humble and who doesn't want to twist the facts, and they want to teach you Bhagavad Gita as it is. Srila Prabhupada said, I am only a postman, and he always used to say, I am giving you things as they are. The only credit to me is what your father sent you, the money order, I am handing over to you as it is. I am not adding or subtracting anything from that. So here Krishna clearly says the answer, my personal form. Those who are worshipping with faith, they are considered by me to be most perfect. So if Krishna says most perfect, they are the most perfect. Third and fourth, so Krishna continues the answer. Because you have asked me whether the impersonalist is greater or Bhakta is greater. I have told you Bhakta is the greater one. Let me talk to you about the other group of people, Jnanis. But those who fully, let me read the shloka first. Yetu aksharam anirdesyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatragam achintyam cha kutastam achalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. Again, yetu aksharam anirdesyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatragam achintyam cha kutastam achalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. Translation. But those who fully worship the unmanifested Nirakar, that which lies beyond the perception of senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed towards everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So this is the process that they all have to go through. It's a dry mechanical process where you have to use your intelligence to speculate with the help of the scriptures, the Vedic scriptures, and go on speculating, this is not me, this is not me, this is not me, like that, and ultimately rejecting everything, the material world, your material senses, your body, your mind, your intelligence, everything, and you try to merge yourself in that one light, Brahman light. So Krishna says, very, very difficult for them. Krishna will explain further in the next shloka why it is difficult. But I hope all of you are now clearly understanding those jnanis who deny God has a form, they all have to go through this great suffering. Most of them will fall down. You know how they will fall down? While they want to reject this material world, they will find it so difficult. So they will come back to do some charitable activity like opening a school, opening a hospital, opening anatha ashrams, like that. Why they do it? Because they are not able to totally reject this world. Even though they say everything is false, everything is maya, but they cannot practice that. So what they will do? They will again start doing some social work because they want some honor, they want some satisfaction in the heart. The heart is longing for love, giving and receiving love. The jnani cannot deny that. So when he is trying to move towards something totally unmanifest and impersonal, he is drawn towards this material world to experience relationships. So that is why it's so difficult for them. Krishna explains, Kleshodhikadarastesham avyakta sakta chetasham avyakta hi gadir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate. Again, Kleshodhikadarastesham avyakta sakta chetasham avyakta hi gadir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate. What Krishna says is so interesting. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So beautifully Krishna is saying, embodied. That means you have a deha. You are not the deha, but you are thinking you are the deha. Is it not? All of us are thinking we are the deha. When we studied the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, clearly we understood we are not the car, we are the driver. We are not the dress, we are the person who is inside the dress. Similarly, we are not the body, we are the soul inside the body. We have learned that. But how many of us are actually realizing that in day-to-day life? We are still going to work, we are trying to earn, we are trying to eat some good food, we are trying to satisfy our senses. We are living very much on the bodily platform. So Krishna says, look, as a jnani, you may say this body is not real, but can you live with that realization? Krishna says, very difficult, always difficult. So why do you want to deny the form? When you try to deny the form, you have to deny your own form, and you have to also deny the forms around you, and you have to constantly meditate on the formless something which is beyond everything. And that something has no form, no qualities. What are you going to fix your mind on? You are like a creeper that has got no supporting pole. What will happen to that creeper? A creeper needs a support. But your mind becomes a creeper without a support, and it will run all over the place. So it is such a miserable process. So Krishna says, even while practicing jnana, it is difficult. And even if you have made advancement, at that stage also it is very difficult. So very compassionately, very mercifully, Krishna is telling us, please don't take to those paths. Please come to me directly. Worship my form. Become my devotee. So Krishna is saying this in compassion, not out of arrogance. How Krishna will be arrogant? Because from Krishna's point of view, all of us are his own children. We are all the expansions from Krishna. So in what way Krishna will be arrogant? We all have lack of complete knowledge, so we become arrogant. But how can the Supreme Lord be arrogant? So we all have a big problem because we impose our limitations on God. God is completely perfect. The only thing flowing out of God is love. He's giving us his complete love, and he's asking us to please reciprocate my love to me. Why? Again, only by reciprocating to Krishna, you can experience the kind of love that is flowing from Krishna like a torrent, like a ocean, like a tsunami. The love of Krishna is flowing towards us, but we cannot receive it like tuning the receiver of a radio or a television. You have to tune to Krishna. But how do you tune? By giving your love to him. Then the wavelengths match, and then you start receiving unlimited reciprocation from Krishna. So Krishna says, please don't take up Jnana Marga. I hope things are clear. So this is Krishna's categoric assertion. Worshipping the impersonal, unmanifested form is troublesome from beginning to end. And this amounts to the misuse of independence given to the souls. So we are talking about karma, karma, karma. What is karma? Misuse of independence becomes karma. So we cannot say, Krishna made me do everything. No, Krishna has given you independence. Either you can surrender to Krishna or you can surrender to Maya. That is a choice you have. If you don't surrender to Krishna, you surrender to Maya. If you don't surrender to satisfy Krishna, then you surrender to your senses and you try to satisfy them. So this is the limited choice that souls have. Either you can go to Vaikuntha and joyfully serve Krishna eternally, or you can be in this material world and try to please your own senses with different bodies coming and going, coming and going. He can keep on struggling like that. This is the choice that we have. So because we have a choice, we are responsible for using it. That is how karma is created. When the choice is misused, that is when punishment comes. That is why all living entities below the level of human beings, they don't have karma. But once you get a human form, then a whole lot of responsibilities come to you. And when you misuse, you are liable for punishment. Like the Christians say, in Genesis, it says, the Lord created the whole world and then finally he created man. And God told man, I am giving you dominion over everything that I have created. The rivers, the fields, the trees, the mountains, the animals, the birds, the reptiles, on everything I am giving you dominion. And they misunderstood that, you see. If God gives dominion, he wants you to act responsibly towards all these things because you are the most intelligent person and you are the one having independence. They don't have. So please look after them. That is what God meant by saying, I am giving you dominion. You know how they misunderstood that? It is so surprising. They say, God has given me dominion. I can kill them. I can eat them. I can torture them. I can put them in zoos and labs and do anything with them. Because God has told me, he has given me dominion. Like if you are a head of the family and there are your children, you have dominion over your wife, your children and your dependents. How do you use your dominion? To torture them and to kill them? No. Basically, it means you have to look after them with love. But this is how people are liable to misunderstand God's words. In Bible, this is what happened. So we are seeing yogi and jnani, they are depending on self-effort to achieve the highest goal. They don't want to meditate on Krishna. So what will happen to them? After a long, long struggle, very often they will fall down. Very often they will fall down and restart again. So now, shloka number 6 and 7. Here again, Krishna is now going to glorify what happens to his devotees. Yetu sarvani karmani mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samuddhatta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya veshita chetasam. Here Krishna is describing how he looks after his devotees. We read again. Yetu sarvani karmani mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samuddhatta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha maya vesita chetasam. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities to me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha. For them, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. You just link what we just read and we are reading now. There we read, it is so difficult, it is fraught with problems and risks. They tend to fall down very often, and after a long, long time, if they are successful, they come to me. Otherwise, they come back into the cycle of repeated birth and death. That is about jnanis. And here Krishna is talking about bhaktas. See how he is telling? A devotee, he worships me. All his activities he is surrendering to me for my pleasure. And he never deviates from me because he is attracted to me completely. How he will be deviated? Once someone understands Krishna, he begins to love him. And once you understand Krishna even more, you begin to understand Krishna, love Krishna even more. And then Krishna gives you more understanding, because who gives understanding of Krishna? He only gives. We are so tiny. Krishna is so great. So he is the one who is giving you understanding. Then what happens when you understand Krishna more? Oh, Krishna is so great. I never knew. Your love grows. So what happens? The understanding of Krishna followed by increasing love for Krishna, then increasing understanding of Krishna. Like that, this process continues. So you understand, bhakti is a dynamic process. It is not static. It is not that I have now become a full bhakta and I am now perfectly happy. It is not like that. Love of Krishna is ever expanding. And please, all of you kindly understand, even Krishna is not something static. Krishna is so dynamic. Krishna is constantly growing, expanding. His Ananda is growing. And the Ananda he is distributing to his devotees, that is also constantly growing. So it is said in the scriptures, there is one thing that even Krishna does not know. What is that? Krishna's own glories. Why is it so? Because they are expanding. As the devotee gives his love to Krishna more and more, he understands Krishna more and more, and this process goes on. So Krishna is an unlimited ocean of bliss. So you can just go on enjoying this unlimitedly. That is why a bhakta never falls down. A yogi falls down. A jnani falls down, because they are not experiencing the supreme bliss. So what happens? Their heart is still vacant. They are not experiencing that love. So what happens? They come back to this material world to do some social work and charity. But a pure devotee, because he is so much attracted to Krishna, this material world simply drops off like a loose dress, that cannot stand on a thin body. It just falls off. So that is so. The devotee, by constantly meditating on Krishna, Krishna says, I am the swift deliverer. Bhavami na chirag partha. Krishna says, I quickly deliver them from the mrityu samsara sagara. The land of this material world is full of death and birth. Samsara, ocean, sagara, samsara, sagara, mrityu samsara, sagara. Everything here comes to death. Finally, everything is death. As sure as death, we say, no? As sure as death. Like that, everything becomes finished at one point of time. But from this place, Krishna delivers his devotee swiftly. It is not a time-taking process. In fact, even today, when you say, Oh Krishna, I surrender to you with love, then from that day, you are in the charge of Krishna. Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. That's what Krishna says. So, there is a beautiful picture here. We are seeing Bhishma Dev in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Many of you may not know, looking at this picture, Krishna is attacking Bhishma. And many people will think, oh, Bhishma is the enemy and Krishna is going to kill him in great anger. This is the picture you get. And Arjuna is trying to stop Krishna. But actually, what is happening? Krishna is reciprocating the love of Bhishma, but only Bhishma knows. And of course, the pure devotees know. What happened? Bhishma is actually a great devotee of Krishna. He is considered as a Mahajana. But under Krishna's secret instructions to him in his heart, that I want to show the world that adharma will not win. And you are the greatest soldier in the whole creation at this point of time. And I want you to be on the side of Kauravas. In the name of your duty or responsibility or dharma, you will side with the Duryodhana. And you will fight with the Pandavas. And you will have a much bigger army. But still, I will show the world that you will be destroyed because you are on the side of adharma. So basically, Bhishma is a great devotee of Krishna, but Krishna is giving him a role that you have to act as my enemy. Krishna can do that. To a pure devotee, he can say, you become my enemy in this lifetime. So Bhishma is actually acting as the enemy. And the previous day, Bhishma promised that today I will make Krishna break his promise. Krishna said, I will never lift a weapon in this battle, but I will make him break his promise. And you see, Krishna broke his own promise so that his devotee's promise will not be broken. In Krishna's mind, his devotee's promise is more important than his own promise. So Krishna lifts a weapon, even though he promised that he will not lift a weapon. So this is this beautiful scene. I wanted to put it here to tell you that devotees never perish. Devotees are in the permanent loving care of Lord Sri Krishna. So here Krishna proceeds to tell Arjuna beautifully. This is why our Sanatana Dharma is considered as a very liberal process, because it accommodates all kinds of people. So now I am going to summarize Shloka 8 to 12. Here Krishna tells which is the best way for your perfection. But supposing you cannot do that, then you do this, you do this, you do this. Like that, Krishna is going to give 4 different ways, 5 different ways that we will see here now. But the best way is fix your mind and intelligence on Krishna and live in that way. This is the perfect way. And this is how the Pandavas are living. Because Pandavas have a spontaneous love for Krishna, their mind and intelligence is automatically fixed on Krishna. Then you live like water on a lotus leaf. Water on a lotus leaf never touches it. It is staying on the leaf, but it is not even touching that leaf. That way, a pure devotee lives in this world. He performs his responsibilities, but only for the pleasure of Krishna. For such people, perfection is automatic. So Krishna says, this is the best way. Fix your mind on me. But supposing you are not having that spontaneous love for me, then what to do? So this is where we all are standing. If you are not able to spontaneously love, the love for Krishna is not 24 hours in our heart. Sometimes when we hear about Krishna, talk about the glories of Krishna, when we take darshan of his beautiful form, or we read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, we feel attraction. But then our material attractions, after some time, they take over. Our senses are so strong. Then we are in trouble. So Krishna says, if that is your case, then take a spiritual master. Take a guru. And who is a guru? A pure devotee of Krishna in the parampara system. I hope you all remember the 4 paramparas we discussed. The Vaishnava Guru Shishya parampara, starting from Krishna. All the 4 paramparas, the original, it started from Krishna advising, giving the message to one devotee, and then he became the guru for the world. Like that, the parampara continues. One was started by Mahalakshmi called Sri Sampradaya, another one by Lord Shiva called Rudra Sampradaya, third one by the 4 Kumaras called Kumara Sampradaya, and the 4th one by Brahmaji himself called Brahma Sampradaya. Now we are talking about the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that comes in the Brahma Sampradaya. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, that is how it is called. So you have to take a spiritual master. You can take a spiritual master from any of these 4. And you have to see that your spiritual master is a pure surrendered devotee of Krishna. Someone who talks nicely is not automatically your spiritual master. You have to also test the person for 1 year and see whether this person is actually living as he is preaching. Because a guru, not only he should be connected to his own guru, but he should also practice what he is preaching in his life. So guru is known by his acharya. What he is preaching is he also practicing. And also he should not preach his own ideas. He should preach only what is coming in the parampara and what Krishna has spoken in Bhagavad Gita. Only that message they should speak. They should not concoct. That is why if you happen to have a guru who is not in this parampara system, then you should immediately start your rethinking, because these are very perfect sciences. Your guru must come in the bona fide Vaishnava Sampradaya. Then what happens, even though you don't have love, because the guru has the love, the parampara has the love, and it is coming from Krishna, they will tell you how to act. That is called regulative principles of bhakti. So you don't have spontaneous love, but they will help you to act as though you have spontaneous love. So just like a pure devotee, you will be acting even though you don't feel it in your heart. So what happens gradually? That love awakens. So the guru is going to flame, the spark within you. He is going to fan it. Till the spark will burn into a glowing fire. And then you have spontaneous love. Then you move to step 1. If you are connecting in step 2, you will move to step 1. Now step 3, Krishna says, if you don't have the ability to follow the instructions of a spiritual master and follow regulative principles of bhakti, try to work for me, which means those who are working, those who are practicing Krishna bhakti, either they are pure devotees or they are following regulative bhakti, try to help them. By doing that, you will be working for Krishna. Use your resources to them, either your time or your energy or your wealth or your intelligence, whatever you have, try to help them in distributing the message of Krishna. You are not able to directly get into the devotional process. You assist them, you support them. Then what will happen? You will move it, you will get a spiritual master. Then you will go to step 2, step 1. So this is gradually Krishna is telling next process. So fourth, you see, supposing you cannot even do that. Either you are not very inclined to help those who are preaching Krishna consciousness, or your family or situation, they don't allow you to mix so freely with Krishna bhaktas. Then what you do? Krishna says, do your duty without attachment. Do your duty without attachment and try to be self-situated. Self-situated means recognize that you are a soul, you are not the body. Krishna, you leave him alone for the time being, but live a proper moral life. Perform your duties strictly, but don't be attached to the results. That is Nishkama Karma Yoga. You perform Nishkama Karma Yoga, and because there is no karma, there is no desire for enjoyment in your heart, and you are doing your duties, slowly purification takes place. Then what happens? Then you develop attraction towards Krishna. Then you will move to step 3. So by performing step 4, you will move to step 3 and then 2 and 1. So like that Krishna is telling. So if you are not able to do Nishkama Karma Yoga also, then what he says, start transcendental knowledge, Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga. Try to do this, mental speculative process by using scriptures. You cannot speculate independently with the help of scriptures, and there are people, teachers in that line. With the help of them, try to start doing jnana. The jnana process, that is the least. But then by doing jnana, one day you will come to Nishkama Karma. By fully understanding that this whole world is actually Maya, through the process of Sankhya Yoga, you will start working without attachment. Then you will go to step 4. This is why Sanatana Dharma is considered most broad-minded. It accommodates all kinds of people with all kinds of mindset. In another class, in 4th chapter, we discussed about Varna Ashrama Dharma. We did not go into great detail, but we said the Varnas are created by Krishna. Actually, Varnas are created on this basis, based on a person's qualities and nature of work, not by birth. So Krishna says there are 4 kinds of people by nature. And Krishna says that is created by me. So here, these different steps are given by Krishna to accommodate different mindsets. So ultimately, Krishna says mental speculation is the least process. Better than that is meditation, which is yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. And better than that is working without attachment, Nishkama Karma Yoga. And from that, you can develop your devotion. So now you go to, these are the slokas. Now we have discussed the ladder. Now we will read the slokas which talk about it. 12.8. Mayyeva mana adatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya nivashishyasi mayyeva ata urdhvam na samsayah. Again. Mayyeva mana adatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya vivashishyasi mayyeva ata urdhvam na samshaya. This is the best process. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. So, na samshaya. The sloka ends with na samshaya. That means no doubt. You will see throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is using these words. Have no doubt. Have full faith, like that. So, this is for those who have automatic attraction towards Krishna, like the Pandavas or Draupadi. They spontaneously think of Krishna. When they are happy, they think of Krishna. When they are sad, they think of Krishna. When they are in danger, they think of Krishna. When they achieve something, they think of Krishna. So it is spontaneous for them. So if it is not possible, here I'm giving you a couple of examples here. One is, you see the baby Prahlada, just 5 years old. He's being threatened by so many Rakshasas. But he is meditating on Lord Narayan. He is not begging Narayan to save him because he is in no fear at all. How he is fearless? When God is inside you, there is no fear. Fear is a sign of darkness. Fear arises from not knowing the truth, out of ignorance. But Prahlad has been completely lit up in his heart by the knowledge of Krishna given by his guru Narada. So, by meditating on Krishna, he has become fearless. So, here is a pure devotee. And in the next picture, you see, I have given you a little bit about this king who defied Durvasa Muni. Who is that? Ambarish Maharaj. This Ambarish Maharaj is the person standing in the white dress, and you can see a huge demon, fire demon, trying to burn him down because of Durvasa. Actually, Durvasa was unreasonably angry over him, and he sent this demon by his mystic powers to kill him. But this demon, what happened? Immediately the Sudarshan Chakra came and burnt the fire demon into ashes. And then it came to attack Durvasa also. And ultimately, Durvasa had to surrender in front of the king, but the king very magnanimously did not even take offense. Where is the question of forgiving? He prayed to Sudarshana Chakra, please leave this yogi alone. I am not offended by him. So immediately Sudarshana cooled down. So here you can see these are people whose hearts are completely absorbed in Krishna, and they have become totally fearless, and they have no material desires also. So this is the next sloka, 12.9. Ata chittam samadhatum nasaknosi mayi sthiram abhyasa yoge natato mam yichaptum dhananjaya. Again. Ata chittam samadhatum nasaknosi mayi sthiram abhyasa yoge natato mam yichaptum dhananjaya. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So where you don't have a spontaneous love for me, then you practice Bhakti Yoga. You see, like children, sometimes they play with toys, and one child will say, I am the father, another child will say, I am the mother, yet another child will become the baby, and they will start cooking food. They will use some toys and they will cook something, they will eat something, somebody will go to office, somebody will maintain the house, like that. But when they become hungry, they will run to their real mother and say, Mother, I am hungry. All this work does not satisfy them. Similarly, here, Bhakti Yoga, because we don't have spontaneous love, Krishna is sending the spiritual master to guide us how to do that. So the Bhakti, what we are doing is like child playing, We are playing the role of a devotee. We are not devotees as such. We are just playing the role of a devotee. So naturally, there are many deficiencies in our practice. But by the mercy of Guru and by the mercy of Krishna, we make progress by sincerely trying to do bhakti. Like we try to offer nice flowers to Krishna. We try to decorate the altar beautifully. We try to keep it clean. We try to keep our altar in the most prominent place in our house. We try to think of him as the head of the family. While leaving home, we tell him, take his permission and go. When we come back home, we report to him. Anything good or bad happens, we tell him. Any plans we are making, we share it with him. These are all practices. And by, we will see spontaneously love growing in us. So Bhagavad Gita, once again, I am emphasizing, it is a practical document. It is not simply a theory. There are unlimited books in the marketplace on philosophy. You can buy and read them. It will not change you at all. But Bhagavad Gita is a practical document from the beginning. You see, every shloka here is an instruction for us how to live our life. So this is the second step I told. Then we don't have pure love. We have to act under the guidance of Krishna and Guru. So here somebody is doing deity worship, somebody is doing japa, somebody is distributing prasadam. So like this, they are all serving Krishna, they are all practicing Bhakti Yoga. There are Navavida Bhakti, but most important among them is chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us this great mantra, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself who appeared in the Kali Yuga. So the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we go on chanting, the mantra will cleanse our heart so that pure love of Krishna, which is lying buried under mountains of sins and sinful thoughts in our mind, the mind will be cleansed and the love of Krishna will come bursting forth. And that is why we are recommended to do bhakti. Next is Abhyasepi asamartosi matkarma paramo bhava madartamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Again, Abhyasepi asamartosi matkarma paramo bhava madartamapi karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So again, Krishna is saying, if you do this, you will move higher. If you do this, move higher. But what is important? You have to move to the highest level of perfection, that is to become a spontaneous, loving devotee of Krishna, a pure devotee of Krishna. So here he is telling, if you cannot practice regulated bhakti, please help those who are doing that. Please help those who are trying to propagate the holy name of Krishna throughout the world, with which all the souls can get liberation and all the souls can become perfectly happy and return to Krishna. That is the most important service. So for those who cannot do bhakti, please help them who are propagating the message of Krishna to the whole world. So that is the next process this 10th shloka is talking about. So how we can do that? Be sympathetic to devotees working for Krishna who are propagating the message. Help those who propagate Krishna's message. If you are wealthy, help in building temples, printing and distributing books, maintenance of worship, etc. And fourthly, donate a percentage of wealth for propagating Bhagavad Gita among the public. Many times people subsidize the book so that we give it at a low price. Sometimes we distribute free also. It's called Gita Jnana Yagya. People say, okay, 10,000 books I want to donate to people. Then we will go give it in schools and, poor localities and all that. Along with somebody will go and preach them. After giving the books, slowly preaching will also start. So in different ways, this is the third process. 11. Ataitadavi asaktosi kartum madhyogam ashritaha sarvakarma phalatyagam tatah kuruyat atmavan. Again, ataitadavi asaktosi kartum madhyogam ashritaha sarvakarma phalatyagam tatah kuruyat atmavan. Translation: if, however, you are not able to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act, giving all results of your work, and try to be self-situated. So here Krishna is bringing you to Nishkama Karma Yoga, because you simply cannot attach to Krishna in any way. You are not a pure devotee. You are not willing to do regulated bhakti. You are also not willing or able to support those who are doing Krishna bhakti and spreading it to the world. So what to do? Okay, no connection with me. Krishna says, you don't have to be connected with me, because somehow at your present level of development, you are not getting attracted to Krishna and his devotees. Then don't worry. You do your duty perfectly. Nicely you do your duty. But don't be attached to the results. I am doing this. I want to enjoy in this material world. No. Give up this material enjoyment desire, because you know everything will one day come to an end. So without being attached to the fruits of your actions, do your actions for the sake of doing your duty, but don't be attached to the results. That way, you will become slowly purified. You are doing your duty, but you are not looking at the result. Then what happens? You become self-situated. That means you don't identify yourself with your body, but with your soul. And then slowly, purification takes place. Then love of Krishna awakens. Then you can move into the other processes. So this is the ladder. This is the ladder of bhakti. But in this step of bhakti, you don't see bhakti at all. This is just nishkama karma. You are just doing your duty. So such people are also advancing in bhakti. This is the beauty of Krishna. Unlike Christians and Muslims who will say, if you are not a Christian or Muslim, you will go to hell. Here we are not saying that. And they even say, even if you are sinful, you will go to heaven if you belong to my religion. But if you don't belong to my religion, even if you are very virtuous, moral, and you are totally selfless and serve everybody, sorry, no place for you in heaven. And at the end of this lifetime, you will go to hell eternally. You won't even get a second chance. So this is how the other religions are having a dangerous influence on the world by saying even sinners can go to heaven if they are in our religion. So which is almost like saying, please sinners, you come to my religion and continue to be sinners. You don't have to become purified. But nowhere in Sanatana Dharma it is allowed. Nowhere in Sanatana Dharma. A devotee doesn't have a license to commit sins. Fortunately, what happens? A devotee has no desire to commit sins. His desire to commit sins are long back destroyed. His heart is so pure that desire to enjoy sense gratification is not there. Why he will commit sin? He sees everybody as a child of God. So this is the sign of advancement in God consciousness. You have no longer any desire for sense enjoyment, and you are no longer criminally minded, and all your past karmas are already destroyed. They are attracting people by saying, you come to my God, all your sins will be destroyed. But Krishna doesn't make any fuss. Krishna says, when you surrender to me, your sins are all gone already. Not only sins are gone, your sinful desires are your bigger problem. That will go when you become a bhakta. Because if you are, as long as the desires are there, what is the point in destroying your karma? You will continue to do sinful activities and continue to suffer. So I hope the point is clear that you don't have to necessarily worship Krishna. Even if you don't worship Krishna, one day you will start worshipping him. If you perform your duties sincerely and without attachment to the results. If you are attached to the results, then it will take much, much more time. You live a moral life without attachment to results. That is what Krishna is recommending here. So here I given two examples. At least one of them will be familiar to you. Other one may not be very familiar to you. Maharaja Sibi, he was an emperor and he gave himself to save one pigeon. The pigeon surrendered to him. He took his shelter and the eagle said, I want to eat the pigeon. So the king said, sorry, I cannot give him, but I will give you my equal weight from my own body. So ultimately, he had to sit on the balance. He offered himself to the eagle. Then what happens? The eagle and the pigeon transformed into Indra and Agni, and they blessed the king, saying, you are really performing your duty perfectly, without any selfishness. He is offering himself. So where is selfishness here? Similarly, in the other picture, you see Maharaja Rantidev. The king observed a long fast of 48 days along with his family. At the end of the fast, he was going to take some food, but at that time, different people came and begged him, and he gave everything. Almost at the point of dying, he had just one glass of water. But that water also was taken by a Chandala who walked in with his dogs. He said, my dogs are very thirsty, please give me that water. So that water also he gave. And then he prayed to the Lord, I am so happy by doing this act of sacrifice. I am completely satisfied. I will never be troubled by hunger and thirst ever again. That was his realization. Here the Rantidev also demonstrated how one should live selflessly and perform his duty. So here he demonstrated that. So I put these two slides. There are so many more stories in our scriptures to show how one should perform duty. So here, Shreyo, 12th sloka. Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnanat dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phala tyagas tyagat shantiranantaram. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind. So Krishna is giving the grading. If you go for Jnana Yoga, but better than Jnana Yoga is Ashtanga Yoga, where you do meditation. Better than Ashtanga Yoga is renunciation, which is called Nishkama Karma Yoga. By doing that, you can attain peace of mind. So people are all looking for peace of mind. The formula is here. You have to do your duty, but you should not be attached to the results of your actions. That way you will get peace of mind. So beautifully Krishna says. Very clearly, it is very logical and it is a very spiritual answer. It goes beyond what our mind usually tells. Mind says, once I achieve my desire, I will become peaceful. But Krishna says, no, not by achieving your desire. Because as long as you have goals and you are attached to the goals, you will never have peace of mind. So don't be attached to the goal, be attached to the duty. So from Shloka 13 till the end of the chapter, Krishna will glorify the wonderful qualities of his devotees. What are these qualities? These are the qualities of Krishna himself. I already told you, devotees are simply transparent. When they are transparent and Krishna is sitting in their heart, then what do you see? You see Krishna only. But in each devotee, a different quality will shine forth. And this is the joy of Krishna, to glorify his devotees. He doesn't want to glorify himself, but he wants to glorify devotees through whom only Krishna's qualities are shining. See, if you take a diamond, a huge solitaire with 360 cuts, and you show it in the light, as you turn, so many different rays of lights will come. It is one diamond only, but you are going to see so many different colors coming from that. Similarly, different devotees of Krishna, in different circumstances, they show different wonderful qualities of Krishna. And Krishna is just trying to list it here, and he becomes so happy by describing it. Let us also see the quick list. There is no time to discuss each of these qualities, but for each of these qualities, there are wonderful examples of devotees who demonstrated. So the qualities of devotees is nothing other than the qualities of Krishna, which are unlimited. So devotees are never envious. They never try to show themselves bigger than others, and they never try to put another person down. So he is the friend of all. Because he sees Krishna in everyone, he sees the opulence of Krishna in everyone, he is non-envious and he is a friend. And he doesn't think anything belongs to him. Isavashyamidam sarvam. He thinks everything belongs to God. And I am only a trustee. So obviously, he is not proud of not only his wealth, even of his intelligence, his beauty, his name and fame, his power and position. He doesn't think he owns them. And happiness and distress does not trouble him. Why? He is totally absorbed in Krishna, and Krishna is filling him with so much joy. So material happiness and distress are of no meaning to him. For him, it is like the summer and winter which come automatically. After summer, winter comes. Like that. After happiness, distress will come. He is not disturbed, and he is so very tolerant. Tolerant than a tree. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my devotees are tolerant than even a tree. How much tree tolerates and continues to serve us? So he is always satisfied. When Krishna is there, Krishna is the source of everything, and he is in your heart, then why you will not be satisfied? The source of everything is in you. So anything you ask, before you ask only it is satisfied. So no unsatisfied demand is there. Self-control. His senses are all absorbed in Krishna. So senses cannot run anywhere. The eyes will want to see only Krishna. Ears will only want to hear the glories of Krishna. Tongue will want to taste the prasadam of Krishna or to talk about Krishna. Like that, the senses are completely absorbed in Krishna. And he is determined in devotional service. He doesn't deviate from devotional service at any point of time. And because of him, nobody is put into difficulty. He will never want to put someone in difficulty, nor anybody can disturb him. So some more qualities. He is not striving for some result. That means he is not result oriented. He will only perform his duty. Why? because the results are only Krishna has in mind. What Krishna wants, let it happen. Jesus Christ, when he was going to be crucified, he prayed to the Supreme Father. You know what he said? Supreme Father, I don't want to be crucified. It is going to be so painful for me. But if supposing that is your desire, let thy will be done. This is a very famous statement of Lord Jesus Christ. He said, let thy will be done. If my going on the crucifix in some way fulfills your desire, then let it be. Not that God is cruel, but God is always kind to everybody. So Jesus Christ believes it 100%. So Jesus realizes, if God wants to put me on crucifix, it is for my own good. I don't see it now. So he says, God, even though I am praying you to save me, but please don't save me if that's not good for me. If going on the crucifix is good, please go ahead with your plan. Like that, we should always surrender to the plan of the Lord. So neither rejoicing nor grieving, renounced both auspicious and inauspicious things, equal to friend and enemy. Nobody is a friend, nobody is an enemy. He is equally disposed to everybody. Honor and dishonor are nothing to him. Sometimes he welcomes dishonor more because it helps him to purify himself. He is afraid of honor because the honor doesn't belong to him. He should never take credit for the honor because it belongs to Krishna. Whatever good quality I have, it is a gift of Krishna. So how can I become proud? So he never goes into bad association. This is a very important quality of a devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Asat Sangha Tyaga Yehi Vaishnava Achara. A good Vaishnava never goes into Asat Sangha. Today Asat Sangha is not outside your home. It is in your television, it is in your print media, it is in your internet. Unless you are very careful to only tune in to the good things, the bad association is just at the tip of your finger. So Vaishnava never goes for Asat Sangha. So here, a pure devotee sees Paramatma in every living entity. He has no friend or enemy. He is a well-wishing friend of all living entities. He is the most dear to Krishna. Such a person is most dear to Krishna. These are the statements that Krishna is giving. So we are coming almost to the end of the chapter. 18th and 19th shlokas we will read now. Samasatraucha mitrecha tata manapamanayoho sitoshna sukha dukkeshu samasanga vivarjitaha tulya ninda stutirmauni santushto yena kenachit aniketa stiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. This is so beautiful. Starting from 13th shloka till the end, Krishna keeps on saying priyo, priyo, priyo. Krishna repeats this word again and again, saying, oh, I love my devotees, I love my devotees, I love my devotees. And then he says, oh, my devotees display these qualities and I love them so much. Then next shloka he says, oh, these more qualities they display, so I love my devotees. Like that you will see. So here also the word priyo naraha. Among humans, they are very dear to me, like that Krishna is saying. I have already discussed this with you. We will just read the translation and move on. One who is equal to friend and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, asat sangha, including television and internet, always silent. Unnecessarily he doesn't talk. Actually, what is the meaning of always silent? He doesn't criticize people. He doesn't talk about politics. Always silent means he only talks about Krishna. You should not think he's always keeping a finger like this and no word escapes from his mouth. No, mouth is given for talking, but it is given for talking about Krishna. And ears are given to hear about Krishna. So always silent means only talking about Krishna. And satisfied with anything, whatever comes automatically, he is satisfied. He does not over endeavor for something. Who does not care for any residence. A devotee of Krishna does not mind whether he is living in great opulence or he is living under a tree or in a hut. Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that in his life. He went to America in a simple cargo steamer vessel, traveling for 38 days on the sea, suffering heavy seasickness and heart attacks on the way. But after going to America and struggling for 1 whole year, he founded ISKCON. After that, he had to travel throughout the world in jet planes. 14 times he toured the world in the next 12 years. setting up temples in every continent, in every major cities. He had some wonderful properties in all these places, but he never stayed in one place more than 2-3 days because preaching was his mission, translation of the various scriptures was his mission. For this purpose, he was constantly dedicating himself. So many times he had to stay in very simple accommodation. Sometimes he had to stay in palatial accommodations. It made no difference for him. In Bombay, he had a palatial accommodation in Juhu, where the beautiful temple even today stands. In Calcutta, he went to Mayapur, that is a headquarters, international headquarters of ISKCON, but it was in the beginning in the middle of a paddy field, and he had a small hut for himself. And he stayed there while he supervised the construction of the various guest houses and other large buildings. For several months, he had to stay among floods because that place is very flood prone. Ganga is flowing very nearby, and unlimited problems from mosquitoes, rodents, snakes. But he never minded because a pure devotee does not care for his own residence, but he wants Krishna to live in all wonderful opulence. Same way, devotee is fixed in the knowledge that he is always a servant of Krishna. He is part and parcel of Krishna. So as long as Krishna is happy, I am happy. So my business is to please Krishna. With this knowledge, they are always engaged in devotional service and they are most dear to Krishna. Here you see 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, most dear servants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can see the 6 personalities. They all came from very wealthy backgrounds. 2 of them, for example, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they were both serving as ministers under Nawab Hussain Shah in Bengal. They were treated equal to the king and he showered them with huge wealth and completely depended on them. But when the call came for them from Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan and to write scriptures and to discover the places of Krishna's pastimes, etc., they dropped everything. It was claimed that they had boatloads of gold, accumulated gold. They simply left everything, came to Vrindavan, and they adopted this dress, what you are seeing in the picture, and they lived under a different tree every day. Those who lived in palaces, they lived under a different tree every day, so that even that attachment to a tree they did not want. And they served the mission of Lord Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wonderfully well. So all the 6 of them had this wonderful character. So we come to the last shloka of the chapter, 20th shloka. Yetu dharma mritamidam yatoktam paryupasate shraddhadana matparama bhaktastetiva me priyaha. Again, yetu dharma mritamidam yatoktam paryupasate shraddhadana matparama bhaktastetiva me priyaha. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So, Krishna is giving a very general comment about those who accept the devotional path, those who decide to serve Krishna by adopting the bhakti yoga in their life, and with full faith they continue to do bhakti. Whether it is spontaneous bhakti or under the guidance of a spiritual master who is training them to develop that spontaneous bhakti within them, those people are very dear to Krishna. Because Krishna is the only goal for them. They have no other goal. So they become very dear to Krishna. This is how the Bhakti Yoga chapter ends. And here are a few pictures I wanted to share with you quickly, how Krishna reciprocates with love of his devotees. Actually, the perfect definition for God is not that he is generator, operator, destroyer, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, etc. No, this is the perfect definition. He is the perfect reciprocator of our love. Actually, his love is like the sunshine which is falling everywhere. But sunshine, if you stay in the room and lock every door and window, it cannot enter. It is not the fault of the sun. It is our fault that we are not opening the windows of our heart. So through practicing devotional service under guidance from a guru, We are taught how to open the windows of our heart, remove all the contaminations of material desires from it, make it totally pure and transparent so that Krishna will come and take residence in our heart. And then we are able to feel the reciprocation of Krishna. As of now, we are not able to feel. Through these few pictures, I want to show you how nicely the Supreme Lord is reciprocating. Here, for a couple, that is Yashoda and Nanda Maharaja, who wanted the Supreme Lord as their child. He is satisfying their desire by appearing as Krishna, as their own child. And see how beautifully they are bathing him, they are serving him nicely, they are so happy. Similarly, all the people surrounding them, they also wanted intimate association with Krishna. So they have all been born as Gopas and Gopis in Vrindavan. Even the calf is a very advanced devotee of Krishna in earlier lifetimes, now serving Krishna in the form of calf. They are all enjoying supreme pleasure. You don't compare this calf with a mundane calf of this material world. They are all highly spiritual. Their bodies are spiritual. And in the next picture, you see how Draupadi called out and Krishna immediately came to her rescue. Not that Draupadi called him only when she was in trouble. Draupadi constantly remembered him 24 hours, whether in happiness or in misery, whether in distress or in successful situations of life. In all cases, she was constantly remembering him. That is how we should also practice, not to remember him only in distress, but we should remember him 24 hours. And here, Devaki and Vasudev, they get him as their child. And here Nanda Maharaja is telling his little baby, go and fetch my slippers. So he goes and brings the wooden slippers on his head with great difficulty, and the parents are so happy looking at him. None of them know that he is Supreme God. By his mercy, his special yogic powers, Krishna covers them from the knowledge that he is God. So they really feel that he is a little child dependent on them. That is when you can actually experience the full effect of love, is it not? So this is how Krishna is reciprocating with his devotees in Goloka and with his pure devotees in this material world also. And this is our destination. When we do pure bhakti, one day we can hope to join with all these Gopa boys in grazing the cows in Goloka Vrindavan. They are sitting in circles around Krishna, they are enjoying nice conversations and having their prasadam, even sharing their prasadam with Krishna oftentimes. These are all the pleasures available, and these people are not ordinary people. They look like ordinary cowherd boys, but they are all great rishis and munis who have completely perfected their life, and Krishna has accepted them in Goloka thanks to their pure devotional service. And this is another picture where those souls which wanted to have a reciprocation with Krishna in the mood of a lover and beloved, their desires are also being satisfied by Krishna. So basically, the definition of God is he is the perfect reciprocator of the devotee's sentiments. So this must be our understanding of Krishna, so that we can practice loving him. And as we go on loving him under the instruction of our spiritual master, one day our true form will be revealed to us. That is called Siddha Deha. We get a permanent, eternal form. Like all the forms that you see here in the picture, they are all eternal forms. They will eternally serve Krishna in this form, and they will be perfectly happy and satisfied. And their pleasure keeps on increasing every minute. This is not static. Spiritual life is completely dynamic, and Krishna also constantly expands his joy and love dynamically. So here we see Mahaprabhu in Jarikanda forest. He made the wild animals dance. When we start talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in future, we will share more of this with you. Jharkhand, this very dense forest. He was going from Jagannath Puri to Vrindavan via this forest. And while going, he made all wild animals forget their enmity and start dancing in friendship. So, United Nations is really possible through Krishna consciousness. If everybody in the world can be taught Bhagavad Gita, then we can soon have a United Nations. That UNO office can be demolished and all ISKCON temples will become United Nations. As it is, you can see People from all over the world come to Mayapur during festival times, and they all from Africa, America, Europe, Australia, Asia, China, they all come and sing and dance together in great happiness. There is no enmity there. So it is all thanks to Srila Prabhupada. We say always that he built the house in which the whole world can live. So let us from the bottom of our heart thank him. Whoever accepts Krishna consciousness, their life becomes happy, peaceful, joyful, and full of love. Whether it is the family, or it is one member of the family, or it is one community, or it is one township, wherever you see this, there will be happiness and peace of mind. So let us all chant the Mahamantra together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. If devotees want to acquire this Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, all these books have been written by Srila Prabhupada, translated with purports in English and every language. If you want, please contact this number 9790779238, and this gentleman devotee will be able to guide you which books are suitable for you, and he will also arrange to have it delivered to you on value payable basis or by any suitable arrangement. So thank you very much once again. Hare Krishna.